Book 2, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm starting to finally feel better. I mean, I'm still a little sniffly, and I'm pretty sure the COVID is probably gone by now, or at least not contagious anymore. Luckily, I have, I went back to work yesterday, but I have 2 days off. That's how my schedule is. I will have either work 3 or 4 days in a row and then have a day off, or have an every other day schedule where I work every other day throughout the week. Or I'll just have one day where I work and then I'll have a couple days off and then I'll work again. So it's my schedule's all over the place. And I guess that's just how part-time is, you don't really have a set schedule. And I remember at first, when I first started working at the store, I was, all disappointed because that meant that I didn't know when my weekends, I didn't really have weekends, the actual days that are the weekends. Although I have Friday off and Saturday, so this time around. But then my sister had told me that, that means that you don't have weekends on you consider the days off as your weekends. And and with this job and everything, and since I'm not a student anymore, I haven't been a student for a while, sometimes I can't remember what the days are. I mean, the only reason why I know is, weekends are always busy at the store, and starting Thursday, so I know when Thursday is. And that's also the day that that seniors get their discount. So really, I only know Thursdays. Now, of course, if there's a show, a weekly show that I watch, which they still sometimes do. Disney Plus does that with their shows. All the Marvel shows, that's what they've been doing. They've been doing weekly episodes every week. So that can help sometimes, too, for me to know what day it is. But anyways, it's time for a update for you guys. So, I'm debating about doing a wrap-up this month for September because, I haven't read a lot. I mean, I've read stuff, but, the whole trip to London kind of threw off my reading, which is not, that's not a big deal because I was going to London, so... it's definitely worth it, but it did throw off my reading because the only thing, I didn't get a lot of reading on the trip. The only thing, it was not a relaxing vacation, it was an on-the-go vacation, which I love. I get very restless for some reason, I just don't like those ones where you're just not doing anything. I get restless, and I don't like not doing anything. I want to have something to do. I want to, go somewhere, and unfortunately, when I'm going to my grandma's house or something, or even my sister's at times. Although with my sister, going to my sister's, we're more prone to be doing stuff with the kids. But when going to my grandma's, we do the same thing. I don't do a lot. And then, of course, she doesn't have a lot because it's just her living there. So she doesn't have, cable TV. She only has a little bit of TV. So I end up spending the whole time on my computer. And... I try to prioritize reading, so we're not doing anything. I mean, occasionally I try to go with my mom to run errands, which was kind of sad that I get excited to go to Walmart, but... So I kind of prefer a vacation where there's so many exciting things we're doing, I only read, there was only one thing that I finished on that vacation. Because even when we were on the plane flying there, I spent most of the trip watching movies. It's hard for me to get comfortable on the plane. And then I'm also tired, so there are times when I want to just sit there and stare into space. Or at least attempt to sleep. In the end, of course, I failed at that. And then I didn't, and I read something right before we left, more as, because it's something I've been meaning to read, and it's not a long read. It was the Gilmore Girls, A Day in the Life in Stars Hollow book, the picture book that came out. So I read that right before we left. So I won't have a lot to talk about. I mean, I'm reading a book right now. I'm reading 2 books right now. One I'm probably not going to get done before the end of the month. And I'm already thinking about going to something else for October. Because now after watching Mike from Mike's book reviews talk about his October reads, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I want to read spooky reads for October, or at least something more like supernatural or something. But I still, I'm still want to do Victober, of course. That is always the conundrum I feel during October, where I want to do a Victober, but then the last couple years, I not only want to do Victober, but I also want to do like spooky reads and stuff like that. So that's always, that's where I'm always like, okay, what, caught between trying to decide when I want to, as it gets closer to October, trying to decide what I'm going to read for October. That's why every time I do a TBR, it doesn't go well. But anyway, so what I'm currently reading right now is The Magicians by Lev Grossman, and I'm really enjoying this. This is really good. I'm glad I decided to give it another shot after Murphy Napier's review of the series. And I really did love the show. I really like the show. And now I know a lot of people say the show is better than the book, which I think is rare, where like most of the time people say that the book is better, but on occasion sometimes the show does it better. And like I said, Leanne's Library did a video where she talked about movies that were better than the book, and there were some of them that she included that I actually disagree with. Of course, she also wasn't crazy about the books. Some of those she wasn't crazy about the books to begin with anyway. But this is like basically the more adult version of Harry Potter, as a lot of people compare it. It's this kid, Quentin. He's college age, and he's getting ready. The book starts with him getting ready to go to college interview with his 2 best friends, and he has always been a fan of this series called the Fillory series, Fillory and Further, or something like that, and it's kind of a Narnia, Harry Potter type series, and he wants to live in that kind of world. He's a big fantasy fan, like a lot of us, and when he's going to his college interview, something weird happens, where he ends up getting invited to do an interview and an entrance exam to a magic school. And he finds out magic is real, and he goes to the school called he gets into the school called Brakebills, and it goes through his whole semester his whole years at Brakebills, and the friends he meets, he, gets, ends up with a group of kids that are the physical kids. They do physical magic, and, he gets a girlfriend for the first time, and it's just about his life there, and magic is very, I love both kinds of hard and soft magic systems, but I like but I do sometimes lean more towards hard magic systems where it's more of a, there's a process to it, and it's more intricate, and you see the progress of the character learning how to use magic. And what is really cool about this is it doesn't just it's not an accelerated course of him learning magic. You actually see him through the years, and it's a lot harder, and he doesn't easily learn it. He's as the main character, he's not the one who's the best at it. Like, you have 2 other characters, Elliot and Alice, who are actually the ones that are really good and really powerful. And it deals with kind of life, and it's a little more realistic and a little more, and the characters aren't as happy, and although Harry had a miserable life, but growing up before he realized he was a wizard, but it's not like that all of a sudden, he finds a school and all of a sudden his life, well, let me rewind. Okay, so it's all basically all the kids have not such great lives. And because because I'm reading this after I've watched the show, I know that you do learn that with magic, that people can do magic are really people who are unhappy. Basically, their lives kind of suck, and magic is like their outlet. Magic, because magic fuels emotions, and I think that's in a lot of fantasy series when people that magic is what is triggered by your emotional response triggers your magical powers and all that. And I think this series does that as well. But we haven't gotten to that point in the book where that is explained, where hasn't been a conversation about that in the book. But I remember that is in the show. They do have that conversation in the show. But it's very interesting to read this, having watched the show, because one, as I always say, I feel like, not that this was it's not as dense as some of the classics, or it's not as necessarily as detailed as Song of Ice and Fire, but I do still because I've seen the adaptation already, and I know, and I know what happens and everything. I do, that's what I picture when I read this book. I picture those actors, even though, for instance, Penny is a little different in the book, the way he's described, than the way than the actor who plays him in the show. I noticed that. And but that's who I picture as Penny in the book. When I'm reading the book. But I don't get why people don't like it. I mean, I know it's a polarizing, but I don't get it. I don't understand why people don't like this, because I'm really enjoying it. And I'm almost done, I'm almost on book 2. And apparently book 2 is not, it's not as, not, and when I say book 2, I mean, this book 2 section, it's, in the book, it's book 1, and then you have, which is a long section, and then you have where I'm at book 2, where I will be at book 2. I'm in the last chapter of book 1, and it looks like book 2 is not that long, and then you have book 3. So it's kind of in so it's not, it is, I don't mean as in I'm almost done with this book and then I'm going to go to book 2. I mean as in the way it's divided in the book, you have book 1, book 2, book 3. I hope I'm making sense. But yeah, this is really good. I like that it's very gritty, and the characters are just average teenagers and are a little snarky and sassy and sarcastic, and just and how they're just kind of, some of them are kind of just, bitter about life and not always happy, and just angry teenagers, or late 20s, because they're almost, they're almost in their 20s, I believe. But yeah, so I'm really liking this, and I don't know what will probably happen is I will say, I can't read book 2 in the whole trilogy, and I don't get to it for months. That's what's probably going to happen. Even though I'm enjoying this, it's I don't like to, in a series, I don't or a trilogy or a duology, I don't always like to read the next book. I don't read the next book right away. And then, I'm and even when I say I'm excited to read the next book, I don't want to get into it right away, because I want to read other stuff first. And then it takes me a long time before I get to the next book. But I need to buy book 3 soon, because I don't have book 3, I don't think. Yeah, I don't, that's the one where I don't have book 3. Because it's, the All Souls is the one where I bought the 3rd book already. Although there is technically a 4th book. I did read the description of the 4th book at the bookstore, and it's technically, I think, books 2 through 3 in the All Souls is a complete story, and that I think the fourth book, Time's Convert, is actually just a separate story from Diana and Matthew's story. But anyway, yeah. So I always have to think about that. I don't know which one is out of those, which ones I have all the books. Although technically I don't have all the books in that series, but anyway, you know what I mean. So I gotta get book 3 in the Magician's Land. I have to get that before, because I don't want what happened with there's other trilogies where I was all set to, I was enjoying the first 2 books and I was all set to read the last one, and then I just never got around to it and eventually lost interest in the series, even though I enjoyed the first 2 books. And that was that I cannot remember what that series called. The Vagrant Gods trilogy. No, that's what it was. Where I enjoyed the first 2 books, and I was gonna read book 3, and then I lost interest after a while. So that's why when it comes to book series, even if it's a trilogy, I need to get the first 2 books and buy them, and then buy book 3 as soon as possible. But anyway, so. And then the other book I started reading was The Emperor of Ocean Park, which is not my usual read. I don't usually care for thrillers. But this one, in the moment, at the time when I bought it, it sounded like something, it sounded kind of engaging. It's this, I don't know let me see what time period, if it says the time period, because I was thinking it was modern times, and then they reference, like, Nixon, and so I think it might be the 80s. This book might take place in the 80s. But it is about a black family, and our narrator, Talcott, he is I thought he was a college professor, but actually I think he's a lawyer, and he doesn't have the best relationship with his family. Like, it's a tenuous relationship, and his dad, especially with his dad, who was a Supreme Court judge, and he's a conservative, and he ends up dying, and his Talcott's sister, Mariah, suspects that his dad might have been murdered, because he has a lot of enemies in the community, in the political community, that don't like, and Talcott talks about how everybody has people just, they hate him, and people just want him dead. So it's not a surprise that a sister thinks that maybe someone murdered their dad, and she suspects that an old quote-unquote friend of their dad is the one who did it, that he kind of turned against their dad. And there is the whole issue now, because this is a black family, the racism issue does come into play here, and there are little references here and there already, like Talcott talks about in his profession, and there are the white group of people that in his job that kind of don't include him in their little club. And there's also, of course, in politics, there's talk of that as well, little things. And this, casual racism is in there a lot. And it really, because this family is a very a very wealthy black family, so of course there is that kind of stigma that comes into play, and that they're different because they're seen as they're a more wealthy black family. So it's really it's one of those books where you're spending a lot of time just getting to know everybody, and because we just got to the where we're just kind of learning about them as he goes throughout the day of his father, his father's funeral and everything, like, we learn about his relationship with his wife is a little rough around the edges. Like, she is a very career-driven woman, and she's away all the time, and he has kind of a busy career, and he has a busy career as well. But he is still very devoted and very loyal to his wife and his sister, and a lot of people suspect that his wife is cheating on him and having an affair, but he still very much loves her and doesn't believe that. Also, his relationship with his sister is not great either. Like, they have very different views, and also Tal's wife kind of judges his sister because she's a journalist and she had a good career and has a great education, but she chose to focus on being a mother and taking care of her children. And then, of course, there also inevitably there's the whole fact that she's married to a white man, and that makes things a little complicated. I think that makes things a little complicated too as well. And then there is the older brother, Addison. And Addison's kind of the black sheep of the family. He is not like you have Tal, who is very focused on his academics, was always focused on his academics, always getting good grades. He's very smart, has a great job, has been with his wife for years. They have a great life on the outside, and while Addison is kind of the one who's was always favored by their dad. He gets special treatment. If he gets a B, if he would get a B, and their dad would cheer and everything and be proud of him, but if Tal came home with an A, it's like, oh, okay, that's great, no big deal. So there's definitely some built up resentment between the siblings. And their dad seems kind of a hard ass. He does not seem a very loving father, or at least he's not loving to all of his kids. Like, he picks favorites between them. And was a fourth sibling, Abby, who died real young. Like, I think she was a teenager. And there was a hit and run situation. So their dad never fully recovered from that. So lots of family drama, lots of, lots of tension in the family. So I don't know what's gonna happen next. It's like I said, it's a very slow going story. Very, we're right now at the funeral, and Talcott, the last part, the part I just read, the guy that Mariah suspects may have murdered their father, Jack Ziegler, has just called out to Tal to talk to him. And twice, Tal has been told that his father had plans for him. That, Mariah had a conversation with Jack about that Jack that their dad had arrangements for Tal that he should know about. And there was also, one of their elderly aunts or whatever, Tal was having a conversation with her where she mentioned something similar to that to Tal, that their dad had plans for him and they expected him to be the head of the household. Which I'm wondering if it's going to be one of these things where their dad, that they knew Addison wouldn't take on his role as the older brother and take care of the family, and he knew that Tal could do it, but he just never, but he never showed Tal love and support and everything, and that he trusted him, so Tal is completely oblivious to it. He has no idea that, their father expected more from him. That's why he didn't give him special treatment, because he knew he could be the head of the family. He could take care of the family. That's what I'm guessing. It's going to be something like that. But like I said, all before, through the rest of September, I might read this and then stop in October and come back to it later. Or I might just read it like on and off, and I don't know if I told you guys, I think I did last time in my last video, but I did decide Full Cult's Pendulum by Umberto Eco. I decided to DNF that. I did my review, did my quote unquote review saying I'm DNFing this book and explaining why on Goodreads and on Storygraph. I didn't feel a connection to the characters. The ideas were kind of cool and interesting, but then there was so much of the characters explaining things that they knew and discussing their theories, and not a lot was going on. And even though it was, the chapters were not that long, so I could get through chunks of it really quickly, I just was not as excited to read it. I wasn't eager to read it. And I was kind of getting bored. I didn't feel any connection with the characters. And I didn't even know if the plot was going on or not. The plot that I was read about in the back description, which is that they designed this computer game or something. And then it turns out it's, lies and stuff like that. And I felt like we didn't even get to that. I didn't even know if that story was going on or not. Like, it was just these characters meeting up to discuss, their theories, their conspiracy theories. And I was just very confused. I mean, I think I definitely prefer the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons type story. And this one was not giving me that. That one was not, Full Cult's Pendulum was not giving me that. So I decided to DNF that one. But anyway, so these are the two I'm kind of working on. If I get, The Magicians done before the end of the month, I might start one of my other autumnal reads, like Once in Future Witches, or One for My Enemy. I might start that one, or the book of, what is it called, the Lost Book or something, the Book of Lost Things, or I might start that. Or there's also The Witching Hour. I might get back to that, but I don't think I'm going to be finishing that one before the end of the season, the spooky season. But I do want to make some more progress on that one. And I started, we had the first 2 episodes of Agatha All Along, just premiered on Disney Plus, and that was really great. That's kind of why I've been kind of in the witchy mood, reading witchy books, because I knew that show was going to be premiering, and, but like I said, I was watching for my book reviews, and all of a sudden I'm like, I want to read some actual spooky books, like horror books, but the only ones I have are like Stephen King, which is, nothing's wrong with that, of course, that's great, but, I mean, even then, like, the one I grabbed that I might read that won't take me as long to read is, The Talisman. I think I'm going to start that one, Stephen King wise. I did decide to kind of start over, and I put all the books back I had taken over, and the only ones I have left are the ones that don't have space yet. They're not shelved yet. But anyway, so like I said, if I finish this one, I might, before the end of the month, I might start something else. One of my, like, witchy books or something, or one of my more whimsical fantasy books, like, but I don't know, we will see. I mean, I'm almost done with it. I'm glad that I had 2 more days off again, because then that allowed me to make some more progress, and potentially finish this one a lot sooner than before the end of the month. And like I said, I don't know if I'll do a wrap-up or not for September, because it's just that I don't have a lot to talk about. And, with what I've read, like, I don't have a lot to say about, that Gilmore Girls picture book, or even The Fall by Ryan Cahill, which I really like. I did like it though. That was good, but the only problem with that one is, as I said in my review on Goodreads and Storygraph for that one, it felt kind of like it was more like a short story than a novella. It felt like I was just being dropped into the story, which is, is fine, but it didn't really have a beginning, middle, and it just kind of had the middle and the end, but didn't really have a beginning. It felt like you were just dropped into the situation, like as if you started the movie at the big exciting climax scene. That's what it felt like when I was reading that, which is, it's a fine story and everything, but it didn't feel like a novella. And, I was hoping that it would more explain the situation, like have an actual starting point, and maybe how the characters get to the point where they are in what I read in the actual story. And I did start reading, while I was towards the end of our vacation, I did start reading Of Blood and Fire. It's either Of Blood and Fire or Of Fire and Blood. I always get that mixed up. I never know which is which unless I'm looking at it, but I can't look at it right now because it's being charged. But, so I did start reading it. But I haven't made progress because I was feeling like I want to go ahead and get to this one, start reading this, and so maybe I have something more that I feel like I can say a lot about. But then again, this is the first book in a trilogy, so sometimes I think that reviewing a first book in a trilogy is a little tricky, because then, it makes it hard for me to talk about I can't do book 2 as a separate thing. I have to do the whole trilogy, I feel like. I have to review the whole trilogy, and of course the way I read trilogies or series is I don't read them all in one go. So yeah, I don't know if I'll do a wrap up for September or not, because like I said, I feel like I don't have a lot to say. Like I said, I could do a review of this, but I feel like I should wait. So it might just be more of a update. I might still do a wrap up, but it will be more like, just saying what I'm more like a currently reading, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about what I've read recently, what I read, it won't just be a wrap up. It will also be what I'm reading and what I'm thinking about reading in October again. Kind of another TBR, another attempt at a TBR. What I'm hoping to read in October. But anyway, so that is how it's going right now, my reading. Like I said, I'm gonna read a little bit more of The Magician's Day. Maybe just finish, trying to at least, start into the next section of the book. And, I have tomorrow off too, so I'll be able to read some tomorrow. And, I want to basically try to get as much read of The Magicians as possible, even if I don't finish it in the next 2 days. I at least want to get a good chunk of it read, so I won't have a lot to read when I go back to work again. Because I don't know. I have to double check and see my schedule and see how many days I'm working before my next day off. Because it's almost the end of September, so we got 10 more days, 10 or 11 more days. I don't know if there's 31 days or 30. I think there's only 30, so 10 more days technically until the end of September, and we go into spooky season. So, anyway, I would love to know what you guys are currently reading. again, as I always ask, are you Victober reader, or are you reading spooky books, or maybe both, like I'm gonna try to do. So if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't, click the bell notification below if you want to be notified about my latest videos, and I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!